The passage I will analyze starts on page 97 and begins with the sentence, quote, James Gatz, that was, or at least legally, his name, and ends with the sentence, he was left with the singularly appropriate education. The vague contour of J. Gatsby had filled out to be the substantiality of a man. The subject in this passage is Jay, of course, Jay's mentor, named Dan Cody, and it deals a lot with Cody's death and basically Jay developing into a man under the mentorship of Dan Cody. The action that occurs in this passage is Jay meeting Cody as a 17-year-old runaway and befriending Cody and becoming employed by Cody, and also the parties in which Jay is mistreated but also clearly enjoys, seeing as he threw them throughout the rest of his life, and Cody's legacy being divided and meeting Ella Kay. The characters in this passage were mainly Dan Cody, Jay Gatsby, and a girl named Ella Kay, who was a newspaper reporter. Some characterization that occurs in this text is Cody, and Cody is a rich man. He was a hard worker and a miner, and he enjoys parties, and he had a hard time avoiding women, and he had very poor taste in women, eventually going out with lots of gold diggers and other women that would basically try to usurp his wealth. Another characterization was Jay, and this is basically the earliest characterization that we saw for Jay. And the characterization parts were he saw an opportunity to better himself, and he took it in stride, and this characterizes him as opportunistic. And also we learn that Jay doesn't like to drink as a result of this, so you could say sober as a characteristic. And lots of the characters that Dan Cody had, you'll also see in Jay, because Jay basically tried to shape his life in an image of Cody, kind of. And then finally, Ella Kay, characterizations for her would be the possibility of dating Dan Cody basically just to get his millions of dollars, which would make her kind of selfish and unwilling to let Jay inherit the money from his best friend, Dan Cody, which would also make her kind of selfish and only caring about herself. Relationships that occur in this passage are between Cody and Jay, and basically this relationship is a friendship, a very, very close one, where Cody kind of takes Jay under his wing and teaches him the ways of being successful and very refined and high society. And also between Cody and Ella, in which Ella came along late in Cody's life to try to get his money and try to have a romance with him. And also between Ella and Jay, and this relationship basically is just Ella taking away all of Cody's money, and so that way Jay can't have any. So that relationship was not a very good one. The setting of this was on a shoreline to start, and most of it takes place on Dan Cody's yacht, which is a very big boat and sails around the continent many times. The narrator of this passage is Nick Harrison retelling the story, and I can only imagine that basically he's retelling it as Jay told him. Otherwise, how would he know all of this intimate detail? And then the themes and ideas that occur of this would be Jay coming of age, also alimony in the way that Ella Kay tries to steal all of Dan Cody's legacy, and Jay trying to achieve this, the idea of Jay trying to achieve this same lifestyle for himself and all of this goal setting. In imagery, I have a quote in which Nick says, "I remember the portrait of him set up in Gatsby's bedroom, a gray, florid man with a hard, empty face." And you kind of get this image of Cody in your head of kind of a sailor with a hard, empty face and not a lot of coloration. And I think that this is a description of not only the portrait, but of how Dan Cody's personality was. There was some figurative language throughout this text. One example is, quote, "To the young Gat resting on his oars and looking up at the railed deck, the yacht represented all of the beauty and glamour of the world." And this is an example of figurative language in symbolism, and while the reader may just see a yacht, in all reality, this yacht represents wealth and a lot of other things to Jay, and it represents the possibility of having a better life than what his parents had. And he liked to think of his parents as failures because they weren't very rich. So this is a symbol of escape and creating a better life. In terms of sound in this text, there was not much sound, but as a reader, I like to imagine lots of party noises, for instance, music, and lots of side conversations and loud dancing and screaming, and other sounds coming from extravagant parties. In terms of diction, you get the one thing I drew from the way that this was dictated was basically you get the sense that Ella Kay was not a very good person and that the narrator did not have a lot of respect for her. But other than that, it was pretty much, there was not a lot of deeper meaning that I drew from diction. Structure, this was in paragraph form, kind of in a chronology. So from paragraph to paragraph, you move deeper throughout ideas. And in terms of tone, it's basically a recounting by Nick Harrison, so you don't really get a lot of tone because he doesn't have a lot vested in this story. So it's mostly just him recounting it as best he knows. My name's Jay Gatsby, and I'm here to say that raging and partying is no way to get the girl that you love to give you a kiss or a hug.